Big tech wants you to be secure and wants you to be protected. But there's a twist. There is security built in to almost all products and technology that's out there. However, it's not turned on by default, and it's put in your hands, not theirs, to turn it on. Because here's the reality. A lot of it is not big tech. A lot of it is the user base. If big tech deployed their products with maximum level of security, consumers would revolt. Consumers would not use it, and consumers would go to competitors that did not have security turned on. So yes, it's easy to go in and point at big tech saying they're putting profitability before security, but the reality is they're putting customer satisfaction above security, because customer satisfaction is ultimately what they want. If you're looking at any big tech out there, from social media to e-commerce to any other sites, they want happy users. They want users that continue to use their platform over their competitors. Why do we buy a product? Why are we using one product over another? Ultimately, it's because of the functionality that it provides. So you and me as consumers are basically driving the demand for features and ease of use over security. Because unfortunately, in many cases, functionality and security are adverse to each other. The simplest way to look at this is a general formula. Security and functionality have an inverse relationship. When you increase one, you decrease the other. So imagine I have a chart and I have two bars. I have one bar or thermostat here and one bar here. On this bar is security. On the second bar is functionality. If I drive security up to 100%, functionality is at 0. And then as I drive down security, we increase functionality. Or the other way to think about it is you start with 0 functionality, and as you add functionality, security decreases. Because if we get to the bottom where you have 100% functionality, you can do anything you want, anywhere, anytime, total functionality, total control, security is close to 0%. So this is the balance that you get the choice. Because a lot of big tech I work with, and they basically tell me the same thing, Eric, we would love to turn on security by default, but it decreases functionality where users get frustrated, users complain, users don't like our product, and users end up going in and turning off the security, but after they're frustrated. So instead, what big tech has decided to drive consumer demand is they go in and they're going to give you a good level of functionality, not 100% that has 0 security, but they're going to give you the functionality that most people want, most people enjoy, which means security is going to be on the low side. But the good news is they give you all the security. So I'll go over a little later in this video some of those security features that you must turn on to have secure. But remember, it comes at the price of functionality. So let's go back and explore this a little bit. 100% security. This means there's 0 risk, 0 exposure of your data being compromised at any level possible. Now, I used to have a slide in my keynotes where I said 100% security doesn't exist. And I remember I was on stage and that slide comes up. I'm always thinking, I'm always adapting, and I always question myself. And even though I've given this slide hundreds of times, and I've said it hundreds of times, 100% security doesn't exist. On this day and age, I don't know why, on this specific day, I turned around and I looked at the slide and I looked at the audience and I go off script and I look at the audience going, is that really true? Is it really, really true that we can't get 100% security? And I held up my cell phone and said, can we make this phone 100% secure? And the audience is debating, no, yes. I'm like, what if I took this phone, I smashed it to 100 pieces, and I buried it in the ground? Can we achieve 100% security? Pretty much everyone in the audience was like, yes, yes, yes. You always get one sort of curious soul, interesting person, whatever name you want to give them. And he goes, no, you can dig it up and glue it back together. And I'm sitting there like, close my eyes for a minute, like, really? Like, we're really going to do this? Like, you're really going to be that difficult? So I said, great. What if we take my phone, smash it to 1,000 pieces, pour gasoline on it, and burn it? So it's basically all melted and disintegrated, unrecognizable, and then we bury it in the ground and fill it with cement. Can we now agree that we've achieved 100% security? And then he finally, reluctant, he's like, okay, I'll give it to you. So 100% security can be achieved. We just proved it. You absolutely can have 100% security. What is the value of that charred up, burnt phone in cement? Zero. Zero value, zero functionality, zero use. It is useless to you. So that's the problem. That's where it comes from when we say 100% security is zero functionality, zero benefit to you. So here's what you have to remember. Every time you add functionality, every time you add more features, you're decreasing the security. Now here's the dilemma. Today, we as consumers love functionality. I've done separate videos on smart glasses. Why do people love smart glasses today? They're cool. It's awesome. It's more functionality. It's geeking out. But is it really providing the value that's worth the risk or exposure of having our lives recorded, recording other lives, and basically giving up our privacy? The answer in most cases is no. So what you need to do is recognize security is built in. It's turned off, but it's built in. And you now have to go in and ask yourself, is the value and benefit from having all these features worth the risk and exposure? Now here's the cool part. Today, a lot of this functionality actually can be secure and still have value and benefit. This is why I believe if cybersecurity is done correctly, it can actually be an enhancement to the business, not a detractor. It can actually increase and make the products more beneficial and useful to you. And here's the big thing to remember. The role of cybersecurity has changed. We are no longer the people that say no, 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 no. I'm the person that says yes, 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 yes. Because I've learned this. If cybersecurity negatively impacts the business, cybersecurity is wrong. A lot of people miss this and they don't get it. But if you go in and you are hurting the business, you are hurting a consumer, you are making life more difficult for the consumer and not letting them get the benefit or value they want, security is not going to be used. And it's going to be viewed as a distractor and basically not involved in the meetings. I want to be invited to the meetings. I want to be involved in discussions. I want to talk to you about new products and features and the security implications and how to utilize security as a business enabler. So how can we use it as a benefit, not a detractor? And this has evolved. I remember when I started working at the CIA in the 90s, and my first couple of months of training, one of the very senior security folks, he looked at me and Eric said, let's go for a walk. So we're walking the hallways of headquarters in Langley, Virginia, and he goes, son, let me tell you how we do things around here. He goes, here's what's going to happen. Over the next year or two, you're going to be trained on all the security models. However, we need you to go to meetings today because we're short-staffed. So you're going to be sent to meetings where they're going to look for your approval to deploy new products and new features. I want you to go to the first meeting. I want you to take detailed notes. And no matter what they say, no matter what functionality they're proposing, I want you to go in and say, no, it's not secure. You can't do it. Now, 80% of the time, it wasn't a good idea. They were really testing at early stages, and they wanted some validation, so it'll go away. Most projects go away after you say no. However, there's going to be a few that are persistent, and they're going to ask for a second meeting. They're going to want to give you more data and more information to really convince you that this needs to be done. Now, this meeting, I want you to be more intense, more involved, really take notes, like really get into it. And at the end, when they ask you, is it secure? Take 2 to 3 minutes, like flip through your notes and scratch your head a little and really give it deep thought and just sort of slowly look up and go, no, you can't do it. Still not secure, still not secure. Now, in that case, almost all projects will go away and die. But there's going to be a few that really want to be deployed, that are really, really important, and they're going to ask for a third meeting. In that case, you involve me or one of the senior folks, because then we really have to seriously look at it and see if we can make it work. And I remember him saying something that really struck with me. And this is true of security in the 90s and early 2000s. He goes, Eric, cybersecurity is where projects go to die. We try to kill as many projects as possible because we want to limit the exposure, we want to limit functionality, and we want to keep our systems and data and people as secure as possible. So our job is really to kill as many projects as possible to implement the highest level of security. That might have been acceptable and valid for the CIA, and it might have even been valid methodology in the 90s. However, in the current year we live in, 2025 and beyond, if we have the mentality that cybersecurity is where projects go to die, cybersecurity will die. Cybersecurity will not be invited to the meetings, and it will go by the wayside, and we will be completely exposed and vulnerable to numerous threats that we shouldn't be. Cybersecurity has to be where projects go to live. Cybersecurity has to be a business enabler where we go in and help and enforce companies to actually implement a proper security measures. So let's look at a few. First level of security is verification and validation. It's what we call authentication. You have to verify and validate who you are. Big tech doesn't want your data exposed. Trust me, if there's a data breach and your data gets exposed, and it's because big tech didn't implement proper security measures, they didn't turn on proper security measures, they're going to have class action suit brought against them. They could potentially have government agencies actually file suit against them for false advertisement, because all these companies today advertise cybersecurity. It is a hot topic and one that consumers are concerned about. So if you're going in and saying you have top-notch security and you don't, that puts you at risk. So the reality is cybersecurity needs to be embedded in the products. It's something that big tech needs to do. But then how is the balance? How do they balance it where they're providing security and protection, but they're not negatively impacting the user? And the trick is using cybersecurity as a business enabler. So here's one trick. What if I put measures in place that only you can access your account? Now, the traditional way of doing it is authentication with passwords. Passwords by themselves as a method to authenticate for any sensitive information is not acceptable. I sort of jokingly say passwords are like bell-bottom pants in the Bee Gees. They were good 15, 20 years ago, but they're not acceptable today. Now, don't get me wrong. If you want to wear bell-bottom pants and listen to the Bee Gees, go for it, my friends. But you're probably not going to be the cool kid, and you're probably not going to be invited to a lot of parties. So you might want to rethink that strategy. Two-factor, multifactor, they're the same thing, is the way to go. This means you're not relying on a single factor, just a password. You're relying on 2 or multiple factors to secure yourself. Typical way of doing this is where you enter in your username and password, and then you get text a one-time PIN, usually 4 or 6 characters, and you enter that in. Now it verifies and validates it's you, And now if somebody gets your password, which very likely, but they don't have your cell phone or secondary device, they can't actually log in or access your account. So now it provides a really good level of protection and is very hard for attackers to defeat. Now, two-factor is today slowly becoming the norm, but it's built into every product. So if it's not on by default, you need to turn it on. Now, this is typically legacy accounts. If you go into most platforms today and you create a brand new account, most of the time, two-factor will be turned on because we're at that point where companies recognize the value and benefit is worth the risk of consumers being frustrated. So they're going to have it turned on. The problem is if you have an account with one of these big tech companies, social media, or any of these others out there that you've had for 5 or 10 years, it probably started off with a password, and typically they don't add on two-factor or multi-factor for legacy accounts. So now you're in this dilemma where you go in and say, do I need to go in and turn it on? So any account you're using, if you are not using two-factor today, you need to go in and turn it on. I can almost guarantee you it's in the product, but because you have a legacy account, not turned on by default. Now here's the good news. There's other ways that you can authenticate. When you're connecting to a site, your system has an IP address that's coming from a location. And that location is geographical based. So when I'm accessing the internet, they know I'm in Northern Virginia. If I travel and plug my iPad in at San Diego, they know I'm coming from San Diego. If I go to Saudi Arabia, they know I'm coming from Saudi Arabia. So one of the things that they can do as a business enabler that's turned on by default in most modern apps is they're tracking where you're coming from. So they know that Eric logged in from Northern Virginia. Now, if Eric continues to log in from Northern Virginia, we're good. Enter in my password, my two-factor, we're good to go. But if all of a sudden Eric is logging in from a foreign country, like China or Russia, where a lot of attacks come from, they're going to set off a flag that goes, we're noticing unusual activity. If it's out of the country, they might actually block it until you verify and authenticate out of band and saying, this looks highly unusual, especially if I've logged in from Virginia at 10 a.m. and 11 a.m., they're showing an access request from Russia. Here's the reality. Even if you have a supersonic jet, there's no way you can get from Virginia to Russia in an hour. So if I'm logging in from Virginia and an hour later coming from Russia, Houston, we got a problem. We got a huge issue and a huge problem. So this is an example of security measures that are automatically turned on. But here's the trick, my friends. Typically, because security at this level is fairly new, it is only in the latest version. So if you're running outdated software or you're using apps from 3 or 4 years ago, you're not getting max protection, you're not getting max functionality, and you're not getting your information secure and protected. This is why we say you must always update your apps, you must always use the latest version of your apps to make sure you're protected, secure, and locked down. So this is one where big tech and you are working together. They're going to have automatic protection mechanisms to protect, verify, and validate. But you have to be willing to accept that if somebody is trying to log in from Russia and you're not in Russia, that your account might be blocked until you take further action. Little bit of an inconvenience, but well worth it in security. I always get folks, but Eric, I'm not the one logging in. But yes, an attacker is trying to break into your account. So now you can't log in until you go to Google Authenticator on a separate device, or you verify, validate, or take some other measure. And people are like, yeah, that's a little frustrating. I wish they didn't do that. But when I tell you in return, you know what's really frustrating? Having your account compromised. You know what's really frustrating? Having your account hijacked and you being locked out and you lose access to all your data and all your information. That's really annoying. So the question you have to recognize today is, do you want 5 seconds of annoyance or 5 months of frustration? You go, Eric, where does 5 months come in? That's the average amount of time it takes to get your access, get your identity, and get your data back. So if your Google account gets hijacked and somebody takes over, changes all your phone numbers and everything else for two-factor, and basically hijacks your entire account, you lose access to all your data, all your email, everything you've possibly done on Google, you lose access to all of it. Typically, you might never get it back, or it could take 5 months. So which would you rather? A 5-second inconvenience or 5 months? So that's where I tell you, big tech does want security. But you as a consumer need to accept it. You as a consumer need to embrace it. Because what happens is if we push back on Google or Amazon, and just everybody, I'm not picking on them, that we don't like this is too much of an inconvenience, and we convince them to turn it off, it puts you at risk. So embrace the inconvenience, embrace that additional annoyance, and you can actually have functionality and security coexisting peacefully in the same environment. One last piece of advice. But before I do that, I'm here to help you. I'm here to give you information. That's why I proclaim myself as America's cyber czar, because somebody needs to step up and share this message. Somebody needs to step up and protect Americans. Somebody needs to step up and protect our family. That's why I'm on a mission to make cyberspace a safe place to live, work, and raise a family. But you need to engage and help. And I'm here to give you free resources. So you can either post a comment below with your email address and we'll put you on our mailing list. You can go to driccole.org, drericcole.org, or you can email me at ecole@secure-anchor.com, and we'd love to give you more information and more data. But before we end, one more tip and trick. Go in and turn on transaction alerting. So this is critical for banking, credit cards, even e-commerce. The way it works is anytime somebody tries to make a transaction. So anytime somebody tries to charge an amount to your credit card or tries to transfer money out of your bank, you get an alert on your phone that basically says, someone is trying to charge $79 on your credit card. Is this authorized? And you hit yes or no. And if you don't hit yes within 45 seconds, it declines the transaction. Now, once again, people like Eric, do you know how much I use my credit card? Do you know how much my significant other and my kids use my credit card? This would be insane. I'd be getting like messages 4 or 5 times a day. Okay, you know what's insane? Having your money wiped out, having fraud on your credit card that you're liable for, having your bank account wiped out of all its money. That's really annoying. Now, here's what I have to remind you. Whenever you're adding in security, it's an annoyance. I remember in the 70s, Ralph Nader was pushing safety of automobiles. And he published his landmark piece, Unsafe at Any Speed, basically saying that current automobiles are not safe and that seatbelts need to be put in cars. Now today, is there anyone that doesn't use a seatbelt? Is there anyone that goes in and says seatbelts are bad? No, because we've grown up and accepted it. But do you realize seatbelts are a bit of an inconvenience? It takes 2 extra seconds to strap yourself in, but it's well worth it. You realize in the 70s, people were revolting? I remember people cutting seatbelts out of their car going, you can't force me to wear a seatbelt. You can't, like people were fighting it. I mean, it's insane. People were fighting common sense seatbelts because it was new, they were not used to it, and nobody likes change. So we're at the point now where we're asking you to wear a seatbelt in your online environment. You could fight it, you could say it's annoyance, but in 5 or 10 years, it will be normal activity. So here's the reality. If I'm using my credit card, if I'm at a restaurant or I'm at a store or online and I'm using my credit card, I have my phone with me. My phone or my credit card are the same thing. I'm never going to have my credit card without my phone. So now if I know I'm charging at a restaurant, I take out my phone, and after I charge, I approve the request. I go in and say, yep, this is authorized. Or if I leave my phone in the car, when I get back to my car, I approve the request. So now we can have functionality and security together, especially with bank accounts. If somebody is trying to transfer money out of your bank account, you want to be notified. right? You shouldn't be doing a lot of EFTs, electronic fund transfers. So banks are the easiest, is anytime somebody tries to do an unauthorized charge, you need to approve it. The more you embrace security and stop blaming big tech, realizing big tech can only go so far. Big tech can turn on some security, but because of user inconvenience and pushback, they're not going to turn it all on. It's your responsibility to step up. I'm Dr. Eric Cole. I'm America's Cyber Czar, and I'm on a mission to make cyberspace a safe place to live, work, and raise a family. So if you'd like more information, go to Dr. Eric Cole, DrEriccole.org, fill out the form, email me at ecole@secure-anchor.com, or just post a comment to this video, and we'd be happy to get in touch with you and show you how you can take control of your digital future.